The engine just stopped. Not slowly, not with a warning. It stopped. You're on the highway, doing 70 miles an hour, and the steering suddenly feels like you're wrestling a concrete wall. The dashboard erupts. Every warning light you've ever ignored is now screaming at you at the same time. The car behind you blares its horn. You manage to coast to the shoulder, heart pounding, and you sit there thinking, how did this happen? This thing only has 90,000 miles on it. And then it hits you. You bought the wrong SUV. These SUVs don't just break. They are engineered to fail before 100,000 miles. Not because of accidents, not because of neglect, but because of design decisions made before the car ever left the factory. We're talking about fundamental mechanical and software flaws, patterns so consistent, so well documented in owner data, reliability studies, and service bulletins, that you almost have to wonder whether someone planned this. Consumer reports, J.D. Power, Edmunds owner surveys, the data all point to the same names, the same failure modes, the same moment in the ownership timeline when everything starts falling apart. And before you think this is about some obscure brands nobody buys, you will recognize every single vehicle on this list. Here's why 100,000 miles matters so much. In the United States, the average person keeps a vehicle for about 8 years. At typical driving rates, that puts you right around 100 to 120,000 miles when you're thinking about whether to sell, trade in, or keep going. That's the threshold. The psychological line buyers use when evaluating a used purchase, when deciding whether to put money into repairs, when judging whether they got their money's worth. If your SUV starts falling apart before that line, you don't just lose money, you lose the entire value proposition of owning that vehicle. You paid for reliability and you got a liability. And that is exactly what these SUVs deliver. And the worst part? Some of these SUVs are still being sold today, in dealerships, right now, with full MSRP stickers and smiling salespeople who will absolutely not tell you what you're about to learn. So let's get into it. Starting at number 7 and working toward the one vehicle on this list that represents the single most avoidable financial mistake you can make in the current SUV market. Number 7. Mitsubishi Outlander. On paper, this vehicle makes a compelling case. 3 rows of seating, a relatively accessible price point, and a badge that carries some residual trust from the brand's early four-wheel drive reputation. Families see the Outlander and think they're getting a smart, budget-conscious choice. What they're actually getting is a CVT transmission that Mitsubishi has never been able to get right. A continuously variable transmission in the Outlander has been a documented failure point for years. Owner reports on Edmunds and in NHTSA complaint databases describe the same pattern across model years. Shuddering at low speeds, hesitation during acceleration that feels dangerous during highway merges, and a complete transmission failure that often arrives without much warning, anywhere between 60 and 90,000 miles. The repair cost? Transmission replacement on an Outlander runs between $4,000 and $6,000 at independent shops. At a Mitsubishi dealer, you're looking at more. And because Mitsubishi's dealer network is one of the thinnest in the country, in many states, you might be driving more than an hour to reach one. You often have no choice but to pay whatever the nearest shop quotes you. Consumer Reports has consistently flagged the Outlander for transmission reliability, and owner data doesn't disagree. Here's the scenario that haunts buyers. You've owned it for 5 years, it's paid off, and you're just starting to feel like you've made a decent financial decision. Then, the CVT shudders, once, twice, and on the third time, it doesn't move. The Outlander is not a terrible vehicle in all dimensions, but its transmission is a ticking clock that most buyers don't know is running. Number 6. Nissan Kicks. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The Kicks is a subcompact crossover, technically on the lower end of the SUV spectrum, but it is aggressively marketed to young buyers and first-time SUV owners as a practical, efficient, modern option. The problem is that Nissan put its infamous CVT transmission in this vehicle and then gave it absolutely no mechanical buffer against the strain of urban stop-and-go driving. That is precisely the environment where this specific CVT degrades fastest. We're not talking about theoretical risk here. NHTSA received hundreds of complaints about the Kicks CVT across multiple model years. The transmission overheats. It hesitates when you need to accelerate. In severe cases, it enters a fail-safe mode that limits the vehicle to crawling speeds in the middle of traffic. Nissan extended the warranty on its CVTs on multiple models after class action litigation forced the issue. But that coverage often runs out before the failure arrives. The Kicks also scores poorly on long-term owner satisfaction surveys when the questionnaire gets past the first 2 years of ownership. Picture this. You bought the Kicks because you needed something affordable and fuel-efficient for your daily commute. You drive it in city traffic every day. At around 70,000 miles, the CVT starts slipping. The repair quote comes back at more than $3,000 on a vehicle that might only be worth $8,000 or $9,000 at that point. You're now facing a decision that shouldn't exist for a vehicle this age. That's the Nissan trap. Number 5. Subaru Forester. This one is going to make some people angry, and that reaction is exactly the problem. The Forester has one of the most loyal owner communities of any vehicle on the market. People swear by it. They put stickers on it. They name it. And yet, Consumer Reports reliability data, confirmed across multiple model years, puts the Forester's engine at a reliability rating that should concern any rational buyer. The issue is Subaru's horizontally opposed boxer engine design, combined with head gasket engineering that has historically been problematic. Earlier generations of the Forester were notorious for head gasket failures between 60 and 90,000 miles. Failures that Subaru quietly addressed through service campaigns rather than formal recalls, meaning many owners paid out of pocket before the extent of the problem became public. Later generations improved, but Consumer Reports continued flagging certain model years for engine issues and oil consumption problems. The Forester's engine can consume oil at a rate that voids the warranty on related components if the owner doesn't monitor it closely. And most owners don't, because they were told this was a reliable car. The scenario? You buy a used Forester with 60,000 miles, because the owner community said it would last forever. At 85,000 miles, you're looking at a head gasket replacement that runs between $1,500 and $2,500. You were sold a myth. The Forester's reputation protects Subaru dealers far more than it protects buyers. We're at the halfway point, and I want to pause for a second. Because everything we've covered so far, the CVT disasters, the head gaskets, the repair traps, that's bad. That's genuinely bad. But the next 3 vehicles on this list operate on a different level. We're no longer talking about mechanical inconvenience. We're talking about brand deception, about vehicles that were marketed on specific reliability promises that the data completely dismantles. The next SUV in particular has one of the most recognizable names in the American family vehicle market. And what it's been doing to owners around the 90,000-mile mark is something the brand has never fully answered for. Number 4. Hyundai Tucson. Hyundai spent enormous marketing resources convincing American buyers that it had closed the reliability gap with Japanese manufacturers. And to be fair, Hyundai has made genuine improvements over the past decade. But the Tucson, specifically certain model years featuring the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, has a documented class action litigated problem that Hyundai has been forced to confront publicly. The Theta 2 engine family, which powered multiple Hyundai and Kia models, has been the subject of federal investigation and multiple recall campaigns due to issues with manufacturing debris in the engine that caused premature bearing wear and, in documented cases, catastrophic engine seizure. The Tucson was among the models impacted. NHTSA's complaint database contains reports of Tucson engines throwing warning lights, consuming oil abnormally, and seizing, sometimes while in motion, at mileages well below 100,000 miles. In some cases, engines caught fire. Hyundai extended warranties and launched software monitoring updates, but the underlying mechanical issue in affected units cannot be patched with a software update. The financial exposure here is severe. A complete engine replacement on a Tucson can exceed $6,000 to $8,000, which on a vehicle that's depreciated into the $15,000 range makes the repair economically irrational. The real trap with the Tucson is that it looks and drives like a solid, modern SUV. The interior is appealing, the warranty language sounds generous. You don't discover the problem until you're already in it. Number 3. Hyundai Santa Fe. Same family, bigger vehicle, different failure mode, and in some ways a more frustrating one because the Santa Fe sits in a higher price bracket and carries expectations that match it. The Santa Fe has been flagged by Consumer Reports for reliability concerns in multiple systems simultaneously, which is actually more damaging to ownership economics than a single catastrophic failure. When one expensive component fails, you make the decision and move on. When your brakes, your electrical system, and your engine management system all start generating issues within the same 20,000-mile window, you are in a death spiral of repair bills. That is exactly what owner data reflects for certain Santa Fe model years. The dual-clutch automated transmission in some configurations has been cited in owner surveys for jerky, unpredictable behavior. Behavior that dealerships frequently cannot replicate during diagnostic appointments, which means owners are sent home with a vehicle that continues behaving erratically, and no paperwork trail to support a warranty claim. There are also documented cases involving the Santa Fe's panoramic sunroof, a premium feature Hyundai charges a premium price for, shattering spontaneously. NHTSA has received complaints on this issue. You paid extra for a feature that now requires a $1,000 repair and leaves shards of glass in the cabin. The Santa Fe story is the story of a brand that overstretched. They built a vehicle that looks like it belongs in the same conversation as the Toyota Highlander and Honda Pilot. But the long-term ownership data says otherwise. Number 2. Nissan Rogue, one of the best-selling SUVs in America. One of the most purchased vehicles in this country has a CVT transmission that Consumer Reports, Edmunds owner data, and NHTSA complaint statistics have flagged consistently across multiple model years. The Nissan Rogue CVT problems are not new information. They have been publicly documented since approximately 2014. Class action lawsuits have been filed and settled. Nissan extended warranty coverage specifically for the CVT on multiple occasions. And yet, the vehicle continued selling in enormous numbers because the marketing worked, the price point was aggressive, and buyers simply didn't know what the data already showed. The failure mode is both mechanical and psychological. Mechanically, the Jatco CVT used in the Rogue overheats under sustained highway load, particularly in warmer climates. Owners in the Sun Belt, Florida, Texas, Arizona, report CVT issues at dramatically higher rates than national averages. The transmission develops a characteristic shudder that progressively worsens until the unit fails. Replacement runs between $3,000 and $5,000. Psychologically, the damage is this. Many buyers are still purchasing used Rogues in the 60 to 80,000 mile range, believing the CVT issue is behind them if the car has survived that long. It is not. The failure window extends well beyond that threshold in many documented cases. You think you bought a safe used SUV? You bought a countdown timer. And number 1, before I tell you which vehicle this is, I want you to think about something. Every SUV on this list has failed in ways that cost owners real money, real safety, real peace of mind. But the vehicle I'm about to tell you about did something worse. It failed predictably, documented across years of data, and the brand continued selling it with messaging centered on family safety and long-term reliability. This vehicle was recommended by family members to family members across generations of buyers who trusted the name. The number 1 SUV most likely to fail before 100,000 miles is the Kia Sorento. Specifically, the Theta 2 engine generations, the same engine family that created documented catastrophic failures in the Hyundai lineup, because Kia and Hyundai share a parent company and shared the engineering problem. NHTSA investigations, Department of Justice inquiries, and multiple consent orders have documented that Kia and Hyundai knew about engine defect risks and did not act with the speed or transparency the situation warranted. The Kia Sorento with the affected engine configurations shows engine seizure and stall complaints in the NHTSA database numbered in the thousands. Engines failing while the vehicle is in motion. Complete engine seizure. In some cases, fires. Recall campaigns were issued, but they cover specific VIN ranges and specific model years. And a used Sorento buyer in a private sale may have no idea whether their specific vehicle falls under that coverage. The financial hit is devastating. Engine replacement at $6,000 to $9,000 on a vehicle that may have been purchased used for $15,000. But the emotional hit is different. You bought a family SUV, you put your children in it, and the vehicle was carrying a defect the manufacturer was aware of. That is not a reliability failure. That is a breach of trust at the highest level. The Kia Sorento is number one on this list, not just because of how badly it fails, but because of the gap between what it promised and what it delivered. Reliability is not a feature, it's a promise. And every vehicle on this list made that promise and broke it, some through negligence, some through corporate decisions that prioritized volume over accountability. The lesson here is not that you should be afraid to buy an SUV. The lesson is that brand loyalty, marketing spend, and a good-looking interior are not substitutes for data. Consumer Reports exists. NHTSA complaint databases are public. Owner forums are full of people who learned this the expensive way, so you don't have to. Before you sign anything at a dealership, spend 30 minutes with the data. Because the difference between a smart buy and a financial disaster is almost always something you could have found before you handed over the check. Now I want to hear from you. Have you owned any of the SUVs on this list? Did the transmission go? The engine? Did a dealer try to charge you $5,000 for something that should have been a recall? Drop it in the comments. Real owner experiences are the most valuable data point any buyer can have, and the manufacturer absolutely does not want you sharing them publicly. Let's make this comment section the most useful resource for SUV buyers in this channel's history. And if this video confirmed your worst fears about which SUVs to avoid, you're going to want to see the next one, because I put together the list of SUVs that actually do last. The ones that Consumer Reports reliability data, NHTSA statistics, and long-term owner surveys unanimously agree are still running strong past 150,000 miles without major failures. Some of the names will not surprise you, but at least two of them will.